Wow, that's amazing. All right. So this is Angela White. I'm very, very happy to have you here. And just before we get into the depth of the interview, can you just tell us something a little bit fun about yourself? I know you're always working, but when you're not working, what is something that you like to do? For example, like, do you have a recipe that you like? Do you
Mhm.
have a hidden gem in the city you like to explore? I know you also bounce between cities as well. So feel free to share what makes sense for you.
Yeah, what I like to do, I like to go hiking. I live in California, so that's like the number one thing that everybody in LA does. That's the LA thing, and we love to go hiking. We love to just with friends, and then you go eat afterwards. Eating is my pastime, and then traveling. Traveling's the biggest thing I like to do. I like to see new cities, meet new cultures, and just explore. And again, we like to have a good meal. So my favorite thing, two favorite things, is hiking on my spare time and traveling.
Ooh, that's amazing. So you must be like really fit. First of all, I know that because I have seen you for sure. So what trails do you like?
Runyon Canyon is my main trail here. And a lot of times for hiking, it's not a fitness per se, it's more so getting the vitamin D and also just getting the heart rate going. So it's recommended by medical professionals that you should do some type of vigorous exercise 30 minutes a day, even if it's just a fast walk. So a lot of the hiking is not necessarily like being in the gym and pumping weights, which I do go to the gym at times, but it's more so of just getting the heart going and getting and being in fresh air and just getting your mind is, it's a form of meditation for some people too, just getting clearing your mind. So
That's
very, very
amazing.
popular here in LA to do that for a lot of reasons. And then you can go with a group of friends and you socialize, you turn it into something fun, and next thing you know, you've done an hour and you've burned maybe 600 calories.
Wow, that's amazing. And I know that you, well, because of work, you also, pivot between LA and Atlanta, which is now a growing market for the Black film industry and other films as well. But what is that like? Like, just pivoting between those cities, and do you hike here? Do you hike in Atlanta as well, or
No,
what's
I
that
only
like?
go to Atlanta when there's work. So Atlanta is just one city of many cities. I've shot in 11 cities, two countries. So Atlanta is just one of many cities. So I go wherever the work is. And last year I was in Atlanta, but before that I was in Atlanta for 3 years. So it's just where the work is. Wherever the work is, that's where producers go. We don't subject ourselves to any particular city. We prefer to always work from home, which is LA. LA is always my number one city that I prefer to work. And that's trumps every other city. If somebody offered me two jobs and one was in Atlanta or one was in Chicago or Louisiana, and then I had LA, I will always choose LA. So it's just going for the work. It's just like almost like a travel agent. You're getting on the plane and going to a different city, but then you want to go back home. Home is LA.
Wow, that's amazing. So let's go into the film that brought us here. Congratulations. We love Nine. We've been following it for a while now
Thank you.
and have sent a lot of people to go check it out on Amazon. And we keep getting the same feedback like, this is such an amazing film, which you know. So people have described Nine like a Pan African film that transcends time and transcends races. We want to know, like, what inspired you to become part of this narrative, and what was really interesting, what is really interesting is one of those films that connects like both bridges. We have cast from here, we have cast from there. What made you say, I'm gonna do this film?
Yeah, so it started with Chris Atto, who's the producer, an executive producer and director and star of the film. So I had to start with him because we shot the film in his home country of Ghana. So it started with him and Erica Joy, who is one of the writers and the story by. So they presented me with a short film, and the short film was really good, but I felt like we can turn it into a feature film. There's no way we were going to Ghana with a short film. So I challenged Erica to turn this into a feature film. Within 3 months, we had a feature film. Within those 3 months, I went to Ghana for the first time to see if I liked the country, and I did. And then after that first draft was turned in, we worked on multiple drafts. But at that point, I was traveling back to Ghana, and then we were shooting literally 3 months later. So the whole process took 6 months from beginning to end of Chris and Erica presenting me the short film and then me wanting to do it. And the purpose of why I wanted to do it was just to enter the international market differently. For us, a lot of times we shoot in Canada. And so that's like our international for a lot of Americans. But it's something different to go to a different continent, such as Africa, and then shoot with your own people who look like you. So that was a good challenge and something different for me culturally. And then at the same time as well, I was able to give back to Christopher, who was trying to bring in more Hollywood producers and bridge the gap. That was his purpose, his goal, and that's one of his purposes in his career. So I was able to help him fulfill one of his purposes, which ultimately was a win-win for everybody in the film. We have African Americans that star in the film. Our lead is South African. We have another lead that's Nigerian, and then of course we have all these Ghanaians. So it was a great bridge of cultures and gaps, not just also between African Americans and Africans, but also within Africa between Ghanaians, Nigerians, and South Africans.
That's amazing. You mentioned that you went to Ghana to see if you liked the place, and you did like it, which is why you went back. What is one of your favorite things about Ghana?
Yeah, I love Ghana. You know, one thing about Ghana, people are, Accra especially, is people are so nice. They're so welcoming, and that's why it's becoming the hottest destination in Africa. You see hundreds, really, forget hundreds, thousands of African Americans going back every year. Recently, I was just back for the premiere, and all these African Americans are there getting their citizenship. It's not by accident that Ghana is becoming the #1 travel destination in Africa. It's because they're welcoming. They want us there. It's not a thing of, oh, we just want your money. It's like, no, we want you here. We want you to understand your heritage. We want you to understand where you come from. Going to Cape Coast and going through one of the castles and going through the door of no return has become a big thing for African Americans. And so I think it's us finding our roots, our culture, and ultimately it's a welcoming place, from the music to the food to the nightlife. They make it very comfortable for an African American to go. And I've traveled a lot of places, and I can tell you a lot of places do not make it comfortable for an African American to travel to. So this is one of probably the maybe second place. And there's another place I've gone to, a particular island that makes African Americans feel comfortable. But this is probably the place I've been to. And I've been to Africa before. The first time I went to Africa was Egypt, and I was not comfortable at all. So to go here, my first country in West Africa, and just feel like I was home. You'll hear a lot of people say that, oh, I'm home. And that's because you see people look like you, and that's not enough, but they're welcoming. They want to make sure you're comfortable. They want to make sure that they can please you in the sense of, so you'll come back. And so that was what was so comforting. And you'll hear so many people saying, oh, I'm home now when I go to Ghana. For the first time, I brought my music supervisor, Sheree Nelson, with me to Ghana. She'd never been to Africa, and she came to Ghana with me for the premiere. And immediately she felt at home within 24 hours. It's not by accident. Same thing with my other lead actress, Chastity Saunders. That was her first time to Ghana when she came to do the film. And it feels like home for her as well. So this is not by accident. This is a constant theme. And so the main thing about Ghana, I tell people, is that you want people to feel like they're being connected to your culture, connected to your country. And I felt like I was being connected to a culture. And that's something you can't pay for. That's not something you can make up. It's a feeling. And when people make you feel like that, you'll always go back. Because there's places I'll never go back to that are in Africa.
Wow. That is really amazing, and I have to agree with you. I think Ghana does a very intentional job of making people feel welcome. Just last week, there was actually an event that was held, and he had a major Ghanaian representation. They had the Minister of Culture and all these cultural people that had come all the way here just to really advocate for Ghana and tell everybody about the free trade happening there. So they really seem to be doing a wonderful job with making it accommodating for many people, including filmmakers, to go back there. So that's really great. Okay, we want to move to something similar conversation, but a bit different. So we are very familiar with the cast of the film. First, you spoke about Chris, and we do have South African actors or actresses, or actress, the lead actress, and we also have an African American actor from here, and you have different people that play to make the film diverse. We don't always see this kind of collaboration. Sometimes we do, but not all the time. Tell me, from a casting perspective, what was that like, and also bringing them together from a cultural perspective. How did you make it easy or more easy for each of those different cultures to work together? They all have different styles from the different countries. If you watch South African movies, sometimes they're different from Ghanaian or Nigerian films and American films. So I know that was really you because you're producing. How do you like get all these things to work together cohesively?
Yeah, so for American producers, we do international films and we do it differently, right? Everybody comes to America to do it. So there's no American producer who's not used to working with all different cultures. Let's say British actors. British actors are like 40% of the industry, and then you have Australian actors. So we're used to working with international actors. We're just maybe don't go to their countries. We have them come to us. And so working with different cultures is easy because there's only one way, and that was the Hollywood way. It didn't matter any other way. There was only one way. And so everybody had to do it my way. And that limits everybody going into their box. And that was the purpose of even Chris bringing me to the table, is because he wanted to do the Hollywood way. He wants to do the training. He wants the resources. He doesn't want it to do the way that particularly, like say, Ghanaians are used to, because he wants to bridge that gap. And bridging that gap means you're going to have to do it on a universal standard. And there is a universal standard of filmmaking. There's a SAG, which is Screen Actor Guild, that governs all actors. Doesn't matter where you live, right? We have a WGA, Writers Guild of America. We have a DGA, Directors Guild of America. So there is one way. And so what South Africa has mastered is doing it that way. They've absolutely mastered. And that's why you have so many American films being shot in South Africa. But so Chris understood that. And I understood that if I'm going to do a film in Ghana, there's no way I'm going to do a film anywhere that there's not an American. That was very important. For me, I don't want to do just only one culture, because we don't do that in America. And everybody might look white to people. For example, if you see a white film, I guarantee you they're not all, their nationality is not white. America is more of a melting pot of cultures. I live in California, where the predominant language is Spanish. So we're used to incorporating people. So for me to do this film, I had to have Americans. We had two, Damian D. Smith and Chastity Saunders. I had to have somebody from Nigeria, and I had to have somebody from South Africa. That was the only way this film was going to be universal. If the film was all Ghanaian, I don't know if it would have been universal. If it was all Nigerian, I don't know if it would have been universal. Normally, those films don't travel past their country. And that's just facts. That's not a slide to anybody, but a snipe to anybody. It's just the facts that you have to have a multicultural cast to travel. Your film has to be bigger than your doorstep. I always tell people, like, if you're only hiring people that you see or people that live in your neighborhood, who's going to buy the film? Who's going to want to rent it? Right now, 9 is streaming in 45 countries. We have it subtitled in 4 languages. It's intentional. If I only did it for one demographic, there's no way we would have countries that I even never heard of pick up the film. There's at least 5 countries I never heard of that picked up the film. I had to Google and look them up. And that was good even for me, because it's like, okay, when people say, particularly like African-American films don't travel, we know that's not true. And so to break these negative stereotypes that countries like Russia, Germany, Ireland, Australia, New Zealand don't want to see our films, it's not true. And particularly with 9, we're in Norway, Denmark, Finland, New Zealand, Australia. I can tell you, Australia numbers are higher than most of our African numbers. It's just not true. So people need to know what they're talking about. That's the first thing. And the only way you're going to really disprove people who don't know what they're talking about is by the numbers, and you have to be there in those countries. So in order for this film to be successful, we can't just stream it in America. That wouldn't be successful, right? We can't just stream it in Ghana. We just can't stream it in Nigeria. It has to be able to go places, because we are everywhere. There's a huge, we're not in Brazil yet, and I can't wait until we go to Brazil, because there's a huge African population, for example, in Brazil. So there's plenty of people who speak Portuguese there who are going to want to see the film. And so, and that's also helps Africans when they start seeing your film in Denmark and Finland and Sweden. It helps African filmmakers, because now these African stars become household names internationally, globally. And there's not one African actor that I don't know or know of that doesn't want to be seen globally. The reason why Idris Elba could come to Ghana like a week ago, he did a big thing in Ghana and get the permission from the chiefs to start building his studio is because he's a global actor. He's a global actor. Most people didn't even know even his heritage, to be honest. So he's a British actor. I'm being honest with you. Most people didn't know. They didn't know until about maybe 3 years ago where his mother was from and where his father was from. He was always perceived as British. So he's even embracing the African side of him and now giving back to his own culture. And it's really important. He couldn't have done that without being, to me, a global superstar. And so this is important for everybody to understand. You don't want to only be known in your neighborhood. You want to be known outside your borders. That's the reason why so many British actors come to America. They want to be known outside of the UK. There's tons of countries that want to see our content, but we have to be there. And that starts with the cast. The cast has to be appealing enough for people to want to click because they might not know the name. And then you have to have an appealing storyline that transcends to that country. So what transcends? Horror transcends and thrillers transcend. We have a thriller. These are two genres that people don't know the actors' names, they will still watch.
Wow. Listening to you is like taking a master class. That is one thing about you that I always keep in my mind. Like you cannot speak with Angela and not learn a lot of things, right? Which is one of the reasons why we reached out to you. We really felt like as we're trying to deepen our relationship with more producers, people need to learn from people like you, right? So well done again. I know you know that, but still take your flowers. Well done. Very well done. Speaking of flowers, right? We've been seeing the flowers around the internet, and I was like, I had to bring this up. We saw Wilson Morales. For those of you who don't know him, he's just one of these like names in the industry that, speaking of what she said, carries a lot of weight from the work he's done globally. So we saw what he put out, and we thought that was really great. And I mean, I just remember back in Essence Fest as well. Like I was in the room to look at the audience reaction to see how everybody was kind of perceiving the film. And I remember you just sitting in the back and just very serious, just watching, very, very serious. So the question is, how do you feel? I know you put in the hard work. I know it was a lot of equity as well, but how do you feel getting the response from all these people? How does that make you feel about your work?
Yeah, the first time to see people watch it, you're happy that they enjoy it, but you really don't know if people like it until it comes out. You can do 10 film festivals. That's not enough to give you any indication that your film will be successful. I'm sorry. If you think it does, doesn't. You have to go again outside your door, go to people who don't know you. Because remember, at a film festival, people are coming because 9 out of 10 times they know you, they know the actors in the film, or somehow they've been targeted to come to your screening. The beautiful thing about when you do a film and you just throw it out in the universe, these people don't know who you are, and they're going to tell you the truth, whether they like it or not. And so when we go to Amazon and we see we have a perfect score of 5 out of 5, and we read random reviews of people we don't know where they are, we go to IMDb, and right now we're at 7.8 out of 10, which is very high, just so you guys know on industry standards, and we see all these reviews. And I don't know any of these people, or we post online. We're running ads. So when you run ads, you get random people from all over the world. You don't know who these people are. And people are internet's a funny place. Internet doesn't hold back. And you see all these people saying positive things. That's when you know you're onto something, because I can never judge a film's success by my audience. My audience is going to support me whether it's good and bad. Let's just keep it real. They're going to support the fact you just did a film. As a Black woman, that's a triumph in itself. But when you go out and you start throwing the net, and people who don't know who you are and they reach out. I have people from the UK. UK has been our #1 audience, just so you know, for 9. And I have people, random people just reach out like, hey, I want to work with you. I just seen this film and da-da-da. Like even when we started streaming in the UK and the numbers were going in the millions very fast as far as minute stream. And we were just like, because we can see our stats, we're like, at that point, we did not one promotion in the UK. And what I mean by promotion is marketing and ads. And we call it P&A, print and advertising. We didn't do any ads. We didn't know how they were seeing the film, because we didn't target the UK. We were targeting particularly more Ghana and Nigeria. And then to see the UK to be the leader and just run, it's like, what? That's when you know you have a good product, where the film takes off by word of mouth. We didn't do not one radio ad. I didn't travel to the UK. I wanted to go to London and do a screening. It wasn't in the cards. So it was one place that we never were able to personally put eyes on people and promote. And then for that to be our biggest audience, it was like, what? Okay, and that's not an easy audience. You have to understand too, the British audience is one of the most critical audiences out there, especially of American content. You know, they're very critical, and it's fine. You know, we understand that audience. So when you have a lot of Brits who are like, "This was good," oh, then I feel strongly we did a good job.
How does that make you feel?
Yeah, it just feels like we did a good job. You know, it's not over. So most filmmakers, we don't get giddy at stages. We get giddy at the end because it's a journey. And I always tell people that. I have just posted that on Instagram. If you're looking for applause, this is the wrong industry. Can't do the work for the applause. I don't do the work for the applause because you'll get set up every single time. Do the work and make sure that it's done to completion. When the film's out in completion, like we're coming out on 10 platforms. We're only out on 2 right now. We have a journey. This is a journey with this film. When the film is done in completion, everybody's made whole, meaning our investor team, myself. And when we can sit back and say, okay, then we can say, well done. But we have a journey on this, and we have to keep our head level. We're very happy of how it's going, but we also are very grounded. Like, we have to be in this for the long haul. This is not a 1-2, thank you, ma'am. You know, a lot of people come in the film business and think it's like overnight success. No, it's work. Tyler Perry talks about it all the time. It's work. This is a marathon. This is not no sprint. And you have to stay grounded that way, because when you don't stay grounded, you will lose yourself and you will get caught up in the applause, and you will look up and you now just missed a whole lot of other opportunities. So it feels good that people are receiving it well, but we know we have a long road ahead of us.
Thank you. I think that's really good advice for any young filmmaker, any young producer who's listening, to understand the retrospectiveness of the business. Okay, so I was going to ask something, but you kind of already answered it. However, I do want to make a comment and see if you have anything additional to add. You spoke about, I would like to use the word, the life cycle of the film, right? And from what I understand, you're streaming on 2 platforms I'm aware of right now, but you have a plan to do more.
Absolutely.
And outside of you have other stakeholders that you want to make sure everyone is happy. Right. So in general, because I know that this is a film that we've seen, but you have a lot of other work that you have out as well. One of them that I've personally seen outside of this was a faith-based movie that you did years ago. These are 2 separate like genres, but for you to enter them both and be like, okay, I'm gonna do this. How different is that ecosystem for both of these films?
Yeah, you know, I do all genres, just so I want to be very clear on that. And The Question of Faith was not my first faith-based, it was my second. So I'm not immune to any type of genre. Every genre I approach to that genre. What does that mean? A faith-based film, I approach it with a faith-based audience in mind. I have to shoot it with a faith-based cast. I have to crew up with a faith-based crew. Yes. And people are like, oh, why would you have to do that? Because that's the world of faith-based. You can't really be preaching the word of God and you have a whole bunch of atheists, and the production doesn't work. And I know people get very upset about that, and you can research it just for yourself. There's many case studies on why it doesn't work. And so, for example, all of our actors were devout Christians, except for, in The Question of Faith, except for C. Thomas Howell. He was an atheist, and that was his role. The role in the movie was an atheist. So it worked perfectly. There's some things that you can't fake. And one of the industries you cannot fake is the faith-based industry. It's a huge industry in the United States, really worldwide. And it's one place you really have to be true to the content. The actors have to be true to the project. And you have to approach it that way. When you go into it, you have to really think like, okay, how am I doing this project? How am I setting up this project? Who is this project for? And where are we going with this project? You know, Question of Faith to this date is probably one of my most successful films. And I'm so happy about the reach. It's gone all over the world. Literally, there it hasn't really touched. There's no place it hasn't touched. We're about to go on Tubi for the first time, just waiting for our release date on there. And I'm so excited because I think like after 7 years, there's going to be a whole new audience that's going to meet A Question of Faith.
Wow.
Not familiar with Tubi. Tubi is a online streaming platform here. That's AVOD, advertising video, sorry, on demand, AVOD. So, and it's very popular in the United States. And so I'm excited that A Question of Faith still has life. It's still growing. We're finding new audiences all the time on a film that's 7 years old. So I would approach that film a lot differently than a film like Nine, which is dark. It's a thriller. Some people feel it has horror elements to it. It would not be the same audience. You can't approach Nine the way you approach a faith-based film. In fact, the audience that goes to see A Question of Faith probably would not be the audience that goes to watch Nine. And that's just the facts of the
Yeah.
matter. So you approach each film with its audience. You have to know your film. If you don't know your film, don't shoot it. Don't shoot your film until you know your film, because there's going to be a specific audience that you're going to be targeting. So that means you have to cast towards that specific audience.
Wow. We're definitely going to quote that. Don't shoot the film if you don't know the film. We love that's a really powerful line that I feel, thematically covers this whole conversation, knowing the product and knowing who to speak to and how. Still on the question of faith, I remember when we were doing some research, we saw the kind of numbers that you pulled, like back, this is, as you said, 7 years ago. Using that kind of background of what you're able to achieve, I know it's a different market. Do you have, for this current film, Nine, do you have a theatrical plan as well, or is going to stay on streaming?
So we already came out theatrically. We only came out in Ghana. That was always the plan.
Mhm.
So our theatrical run is over. You don't go to streaming and then go theatrical. Theatrical, your first level, your first waterfall. We call it a waterfall for distribution. So theatrical run is over. We only came out theatrically in Ghana.
Okay.
We were in theaters for 5 weeks. I think 5 or 6 weeks in Ghana. And then after that, a month and a half later, we had our premiere date to do our streaming. So there's no theatrical run for Ghana except for what we've already done.
Okay. So let's go back now to Angela the person. Just your journey so far. Is there one memory that you have that really shaped who you are today as a producer, or changed, like something that changed your mind on something that, like, for example, let's say you had an idea that something was red as a concept for a filmmaker, and then something happened, you're like, oh my God, this is certainly blue. So we just want to know one really life-changing or pivotal thing in your producing career that just changed the way you did things or how you saw things.
That's hard. That's a hard question because I don't think one thing ever dictates me. I'm always evolving. This industry forces you to evolve. You got to understand. I started out as an entertainment lawyer, then I was a talent manager, then I became a producer. I didn't go to film school, so this was never a trajectory of mine. It's not going to be the ending of Angela White either. I feel like there's so much more I want to do. So for producing that part of the career, I can't say there's one thing that was a pivotal moment because I still feel like I'm growing and evolving and everything's changing, and every film teaches a different lesson. I don't think there's one film that was like, oh, this is it. I just have so much more to do and so much more to grow in this industry. So I just can't think of anything that was pivotal, except for that I'm blessed that when I started in the industry, I had mentors who guided me on what to look for and how to approach it. And that was pivotal. Not a particular role as producer, but having people to guide and teach and mentor was what makes me stand out, I think, from other people who unfortunately don't have mentorship. And I tell people mentorship will help save you a lot of drama and a lot of trials and a lot of tears. So that was pivotal for my producing career, is having people to this day who gave me my first job and still are the biggest cheerleaders 20 years later. I've been producing for 20 years and I still have the same cheerleaders from 20 years ago. I still have people I can pick up the phone and call when I get in trouble. I have people I can call for advice. That is the pivotal moment that everybody to me needs in their career, because your career is always going to be evolving. You're always going to be growing. There's no ceiling in this industry. You got to understand that. And if you think you're at your ceiling, you need to go back to the drawing board, because you're not at your ceiling. There's so much more to do. You know, look at somebody like a Tyler Perry, who people think has done it all. There's no ceiling on this man. There's so much more I can tell he wants to do. So even for Oprah Winfrey, you know, for these big giants that we have in America, so there's no ceiling. So you're always going to be evolving. You're always going to be growing. You're always going to be making mistakes as well. Guaranteed that that's part of growth.
Wow, that's amazing. I have two follow-up questions, but let me do the fun one first. So let's picture that filmmaking was a meal, right? I mean, I can, from what you said, there's strategy, there is counsel, there's all kinds of things you have to do to get it right. There's knowing, right? Studying to know the audience. So if you had to like say a meal, let's say filmmaking was a meal you were cooking, what would you name it?
Lasagna. Could I name a current meal that people eat?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it'd be like a lasagna, because you're going to have a lot of different, or a gumbo. Yeah,
Oh.
gumbo is probably a better analogy, because you're going to have so many different components. To make a film is a team sport. You can't make a film by yourself. Doesn't matter. No, doesn't matter what you think. People try. You cannot make a film by yourself. You're going to need a lot of people to be a team player with you to be successful. So it's almost like a gumbo to me, where you have a little bit of everything. And at the end of the time, at the end of the day, when it all comes together, it tastes good. And that's a good film. Multiple collaborations.
Okay, thank you very much. So we're going to be serving gumbo cooked by Angela for this interview for all the readers, which is really good. And so now I'm going to like almost wear a different hat. And this is one thing I know so many people want to hear from you. I've heard a little bit in the rooms I've heard you speaking, but people want to hear more. So funding, wow, that's a big one. Everyone wants to do this great story, blah, 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 but they don't know how to do it, or they know, but they don't know how to just get the funding right. And I remember sitting in a room where I heard you speak, and you were talking about things that you personally had to put down, like you believed in your project so much that it wasn't just about like anyone's investment, or you put your own equity. There was something that you personally did to move the conversation forward. If all these markets are responding to the film, it wouldn't have existed without that move that you did. So my question has two parts. One of them is, what do filmmakers need to know when, or producers, let's focus on producers for this particular aspect. What do they need to know when they're thinking about funding whatever film? There's many things out there, but we can just focus on one thing that you think is very important. Then the second part of my question is knowing that beyond traditional investors, sometimes there's unconventional or high risk financial strategies that people have to take if they're ready, or if they want to do the film. And can you just speak about whatever resonates, or whatever you think you want to share about that?
Yeah, so the main thing filmmakers need to know about when you're starting your funding journey or your film financing, it starts with your tribe. So you need to have people within your own circle who are willing to put up money first a lot of times, because those are the people that are going to believe in you. Those are people who are not going to be like harassing you, like, is the money back? Is the money back? You know, is it done? Is it done? Those are people who are going to give you money and not be as adamant on, okay, I need it back in 2 months or 3 months or 4 months. They're going to give you time to breathe to make your film. So always start your film funding journey at home. At home means the people around you, the people who love you. Then I feel like you should be ready to invest into your own project. If you're not willing to invest in your own project, why should a stranger invest in your project? It just doesn't work like that. You should believe in your project more than anybody. And when I meet filmmakers who are not willing to invest in their own project, there's no reason why I'm going to invest. Why am I going to risk my money? You're not willing to risk your money. So you have to be able to be an investor of your own project. Since we're talking about nine, I'm the majority investor. I've done over $500,000 alone just in nine of my personal money. And so you have to understand that I had to write the check. We ran out of money at the end, and that's when we started going for investors, but I had enough money to get the film done meaning in the can. And then we ran out of money when it was time to go to post production. So you have to at least be willing to write that check. And that check might be big, but there's no way you can run a company and not be able to do that. So you have to keep that in mind. And then for those who need resources, crowdfunding is a great place to start. So the main two places that people use is Indiegogo and Kickstarter. Those are good places where you can just raise money with people, strangers that you don't know, and you don't have to pay this money back. So this is a great resource for people to raise money for a short film. Say your goal is $10,000. You can start just collecting $25 from everybody, and you can offer t-shirts or mentions on the film. This is a very good strategy for people who have no place to go or don't know where to start to raise money. Start with crowdfunding. Then there's tons of film grants, right? It takes time to get grants. It takes a lot of work. That's why people, when they get the grants, they're well deserved because it takes time. But if you apply for a grant a week or you do 2 a week, eventually you're going to get some of these grants. Again, this is money you don't have to pay back.
Mm.
This is a great strategy to do when you're first starting out. And as you build your resume, people will start coming to you with ideas or asking you, do you need funding? And as you're more successful, the funding, it doesn't get easier, but you get smarter with how to set it up. It doesn't get easier. I'm never going to say it gets easy. This is something hard for everybody to do. Even the studios, it's hard for them. You know, they use credit lines, hedge funds, and all kinds of things to finance their $100 million films. This is not an easy process for anybody.
Mhm.
But the more successful you are with it, the better the process is when you set up your next project. You'll mitigate your risk, you'll mitigate investors' risk by keeping your budget small and your ask small. If you don't have to ask for a lot of money, it makes it easier for people to be willing to write the check.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I think any young producer would, you've shared more than enough. That's very helpful. Thank you. Um, I saw something that you have posted once, and you said that producer, every smart producer, they start the project with distribution in mind. That was something I read that you wrote before, and I think it's very true. But and I know you've already you've answered this question when you spoke, but just in one clear line, like how can you explain this statement?
Well, you have to kind of know who's the audience that wants to see your film, right? So you know what distributor to pitch to. So for example, if you're doing a thriller, there's some places that, like the Hallmark Channel, for example, here in the United States, they're probably not going to have much interest in a thriller, but their sister channel, Lifetime, does nothing but thrillers. They'll love a thriller. So you have to know your audience because there's no way you can figure out the distribution without knowing who will want to watch this.
Sure.
But keep in mind, today things have changed where self-distribution has become a very big way for people to get their content out. And so that has affected not always knowing your distribution, where you can roll the dice, upload your film yourself to YouTube, for example, build your own YouTube channel, and draw people to you. So I don't want to overlook that distribution is working for some filmmakers who feel like, okay, I don't know who will be interested in this film. I'm just going to put it out there myself, and it has been effective. But if you're a traditional filmmaker, I would say if you don't know where your film can be distributed, film festivals is your friend.
Mm.
Film festivals is the number one way people sell their films. It's the number one way, and it's the best way also to receive accolades, awards, set up your next film. If you screen at a prestigious film festival, it could totally change your life overnight, especially if your film wins. So I always tell people, make sure you have a budget and be prepared to travel to some film festivals, because film festivals is going to be where you're going to meet your biggest amount of distributors and sales agents who can help make sure your film is successful. That's the purpose of a film festival. So if you don't know where your film's going to go up front, make sure you keep film festivals in mind before you go the self-distribution route if you don't want to roll the dice.
Wow. Thank you. Again, it's the way you're so clear but so on point. I really appreciate that. Very good advice. We're gonna we've talked about film, we've talked about you. Let's talk about you some more, but in a different way. You said something when you were speaking earlier. You said that there's no ceiling. Like you're this person, there's more. But I know even as you currently are, there's more that you do outside of producing. I know that you're very passionate about developing young producers. Really, you have a program. I know that you also have philanthropic things that you focus on. I know you don't like talking too much about like yourself in that way, but just for the sake of people wanting to get to know you a bit more, can you share what you're comfortable with about those kind of initiatives that you do?
Yeah, no, I'm talk about backstage pass in the movie industry all the time. I'm beyond comfortable about that. That's an online school that I founded in 2018. I'm very proud of. This is a online platform designed for anybody in the world to participate with, and it's in mind to teach young people, and they don't have to be young because we have people of all ages a part of backstage pass to the movie industry, but it's designed to teach people the film industry, the business of it. So for any actor, writer, producer, or director, if you're looking to learn the business of the industry, that's what Backstage Pass to the movie industry is. We have amazing masterclasses. I just taught a masterclass last week on the music industry and how you can monetize music in your film as a producer. We have classes with casting directors who teach a class for actors on how to maximize their self-tapes and how to make sure they're prepared for a casting director. We have writing workshops. We have something for everybody. We travel as a school to 2 film festivals each year, Sundance Film Festival and the American Black Film Festival. We also make our own films. We have 3 films on Tubi right now. That's under my Producers Bootcamp. We're doing another film this summer. So no, very proud of Backstage Pass to the movie industry. I've taught hundreds of students that have come through my doors who have successful films on almost every single platform out there, including in theaters. So very, very proud of the program.
Wow, that's amazing. Okay, we're going to, because of time, we're going to move on to one last important question. The climate in America, which is where you're based, is a bit different than it was a few years ago. Many studios are cutting back on their DI initiatives. Many, I was at the Black Women in Film Network event in Georgia 2 weeks ago, and every single producer, like, they talked about all kinds of things. Pivoting was one. Seems as though pivoting is an important theme right now. However, this was what everybody was talking about. Does that change anything? I'm not necessarily speaking as a producer, just as a filmmaker. And keep in mind, I'm speaking about from the perspective of younger filmmakers that want to learn. Should they be? Does that change anything for them, or how should they be navigating this season from your perspective?
Yeah, so remember with DEI, that's more institutional. Angela White, as an independent filmmaker, owns Silver Lining Entertainment, my production company. I control every single policy of my company. So if I want to have a DEI policy for Silver Lining Entertainment that produces all my movies, then I have one. Now, if I work for a company, say like Disney, which has not abandoned its DEI policies, that's where you start getting into a different type of conversation where it's affecting people of color. And not just people of color, it's affecting white women as well. It's affecting people, members of the LGBTQ community, of getting an opportunity to work at these institutions. But what I tell people, build your own. We've been telling at least African Americans and been speaking that for a long time. Build your own. You build your own institution. You build your own company. You control the narrative of your own company. So personally, DEI has not knocked at my door because I control my own company. If you're going out there to raise the money, you're going out there to get the distribution, you're going out there to make the film, nobody can tell you who you can't hire. That's the beautiful thing about free trade, right? Nobody can tell you anything. So I would tell people, don't let anti-DEI rhetoric affect anything that you're doing in this industry. Any of it, because why should it affect you if you're building your own? Now, if you're trying to get a job in an institution that has abandoned a DEI policy, then again, I would say, look at people, companies that look like you who will welcome you. And that's the hard conversation. Like, there's plenty of filmmakers who have production companies that are always looking for talented executives. And if anything, that's an opportunity now for us to keep building our own We don't have to always look for an institution to give us a job and then abandon it just like that. Because that's really what has happened. You look at an institution like Target, who's abandoned its DEI policies after giving so many breaks and opportunities to young entrepreneurs to have products in their store, and then they abandon their DEI policies, and now they've lost billions of dollars because we've abandoned them. Right? So you patronize people who want to work with you. You patronize institutions that want to make sure people that look like you work there. And if not, you build your own institution. So you don't need to rely on that institution for your resources or your opportunities. And that's why I love Tubi right now. If you look at Tubi, predominantly, most of the African-American filmmakers on Tubi, they own their own production company. And it's a game changer. And Tubi now has blown up in the last, 3-4 years. It's a game changer because there's so many young filmmakers now who are like, oh, I'm not caring about the fact that Disney doesn't buy my film. I'm going to market it myself. I'm going to shoot it myself. And I'm going to put it out there and make my own money and build my own audience. And Tubi is a great example of tons of filmmakers making a lot of money building their own audience. And so the game has changed. It's absolutely has changed. And now YouTube, there was an article that came out 2 weeks ago that YouTube now viewership has surpassed Netflix. This is not a surprise to anybody who's been paying attention. YouTube was already on the heels of Tubi. Tubi was the big fish last year, and articles were already coming out that YouTube was about to get close to Tubi on the numbers. Well, now YouTube has surpassed Netflix viewership. YouTube is a place you can build your own channel, you can control your channel, and you can have people come directly to you, and you can get paid directly from YouTube. So again, we are seeing the change. We're seeing filmmakers take control over their content financially and creatively. And I think that's best for the long run.
Angela, every word out of your mouth, I'm just like, I'm just Thank you. Very, very poignant answers. I think the readers would really appreciate some of the things you're saying. Thank you very much. My next question doesn't seem relevant because you kind of answered it. So let's go to a lighter note before we wrap up the interview. And I do want to find out about your other films, but I'm concluding with 9 for now. If you had to use like 3 emojis or 2 emojis, like to explain 9. So someone is like, okay, I've heard about this movie, I want to watch it. Can I see the movie in emojis? Like, what would it be? I know you probably don't know the emoji names, but you can probably text those to me.
Definitely a cross. We use that emoji all the time with the sword. Yeah, we always use that, and we also use the death face sometimes.
Death face and a sword. Okay. That's funny that you actually know how to describe it, because some people be like, I don't know. How do I, it's an emoji for a reason, right? What am I supposed to describe it? But okay, we love that. So we're done with this. Great information. I learned so much. I know that you're working on other films as well, because I know that the last time I spoke with you, outside of 9, you have so much other work that you're working on. So can you, if you don't share with us whatever you want, what are you working on now, or what have you worked on last year that is now showing if people want to watch as well? Just tell us a bit more.
Was showing last, and like I mentioned, the genres of what we show, we never are allowed or talk about what we're working on until it's out.
Okay.
Confidentiality reasons. But last year I did Who's Cheating Who? That's out now on BET. That's directed by Wendy Raquel Robinson, the great Wendy Raquel Robinson. It's her directorial debut. She's an actress who's now transitioning and doing a lot of directing. So I'm so proud of her. Another film I did that just came out 3 weeks ago, I did last year, a thriller called Darwin, that stars Danielle LaRoche and King Karan, and that's a great thriller if you want to see that. And I'm really excited about both of those films, and they're being well received. As far as the future, we're working on a thriller, working on another horror. We're working on probably, I would say, 2 thrillers really, and a horror. And then hopefully we can do a sequel to 9. If you watch 9, you see it ends in a way that opens the door to a sequel. So I'm hoping that by the film hopefully being ultimately successful, that people will want to finance for us a sequel, or a studio or network will pick it up. So we don't know if that will happen, but that's in the cards, and that's what we hope for. But yes, I expect to be very busy this year with at least two thrillers and a horror, and I'm excited about all the projects.
Wow, that's really amazing. Well, we had such a wonderful time interviewing you. But besides interviewing, actually listening to things you were saying, some of them are just really helpful. And we look forward to putting this out for people to see and learn. This whole thing, like you said, is really, there's no like, we all have to keep growing every day and being better than we were yesterday. So I think that a lot of filmmakers would read this and learn a lot more. And they would be happy as well to join your class. Your the platform that you have, the backstage platform, does it also allow for international people to join as well?
Yeah, everything's done through Zoom. So it's
Okay.
backstagepassmovieindustry.com. And you can also find it on my website, missangela.white.com. And it's for anybody. We've had students all over the world. We haven't just had Americans. We've had students in islands, we've had students in Africa, and it's done through Zoom. So as long as you're jump on during your time zone, you can for sure come and participate with us. And we also have a replay. We have our own back office where you get your own account, so you can always watch on your own time anything that you've missed. We have an open Telegram system where we communicate every day as a school. So the lines of communication are completely open, and it's absolutely, we welcome people from everywhere.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Angela. It
Thank you
was
for having
really
me,
nice
Sandra. I
hearing from
appreciate it.
you. You're welcome. Have a blessed